Sasha Williams. After losing her brother Tyrese and her boyfriend Bob, the trauma she went through turned her pain into a weapon. With her sharpshooting skills and calm composure, she became one of Alexandria's most important protectors. But what truly puts her on this list is her daring, one-woman resistance against Negan. That moment when she turned her own life into a weapon against her enemy is one of the most iconic sacrifices in The Walking Dead. Sasha's journey is a powerful story of confronting grief and transforming it into purpose. Herschel Green. On his farm, this elderly veterinarian had built a safe life with his family, and at first he was extremely distant toward outsiders. But over time, he came to accept Rick's group as his own family. Even after losing his leg, his determination to keep going and the calm wisdom with which he guided everyone made him more than just a father figure. It made him a leader. Even in those final moments facing the governor, the honor and composure he held on to created one of the most heartbreaking scenes in The Walking Dead's history. Herschel represented the idea that even in the midst of violence, the voice of humanity should never be silenced. Tyrese Williams. A heart as soft as cotton hidden inside a muscular body. That was Tyrese. Even though he was one of the physically strongest in the group, his soul was exhausted from violence, and he constantly fought to keep from losing his humanity. His incredible kindness toward children, especially, was proof that goodness still existed somewhere in this brutal world. Tyrese was the character who felt the moral burden of killing more deeply than anyone else. His inner struggle showed us how hard it truly is to stay human in the apocalypse. That gentle giant image of his, along with his tragic end, left a wound in all of us. Eugene Porter. The walking proof that brute strength isn't the only thing that matters in a zombie apocalypse. Eugene Porter. This cowardly and eccentric man who fooled all of us at first with his lie about a cure in Washington went on to have one of the most surprising character developments in the entire universe. Even though he was physically the weakest in the group, his intellect was their deadliest weapon. His ability to produce bullets, repair the radio, and his crucial role in the Commonwealth proved time and time again how valuable he truly was. Eugene is the symbol of the brain triumphing over brute force, and he absolutely deserves his spot on this list. Rosita Espinosa. When we first met her, she was a tough and highly skilled soldier in Abraham's crew. But over time, especially after Abraham, she showed all of us just how many layers she had and how unbreakable her will truly was. With her explosives expertise, fearlessness, and instinct to protect the people she loved, she became one of the pillars of the group. Rosita's story is one of never giving up, even when you hit rock bottom, and constantly pushing yourself further. And that heroic sacrifice in the final season sealed her unwavering character forever. Michonne. The moment she first appeared, with her katana on her back and 2 walkers chained at her side, Michonne became a legend without saying a single word. At first, she trusted no one and carried the ghosts of her past everywhere she went. But in Rick's group, she found a family. Her mastery of the sword made her a deadly ally, yet her true strength was the unwavering loyalty and protective instinct she had for those she loved. Her relationship with Rick was the story of 2 wounded souls healing each other. Michonne became not just a warrior, but also a mother, a leader, and the unshakable conscience of the group. Morgan Jones. On one end, a Zen master who says, all life is precious, and on the other, a madman who believes, I have to clear everyone. Morgan is the most tumultuous and most transformed character in the Walking Dead universe. As the first person Rick encountered in the apocalypse, Morgan constantly drifted on the edge of losing and regaining his sanity. The Aikido philosophy he learned with his staff gave him peace for a while, but he painfully discovered that there was no escaping the violence of this world. Appearing in both the main series and Fear the Walking Dead, he became a key figure connecting the 2 stories. Morgan's endless inner war is one of the best portrayals of the human spirit's resilience and fragility when confronted with violence. Maggie Rhee. From that innocent girl on the farm to the tough warrior who became a leader to her people, Maggie's journey is one of the most incredible transformations in the series. The beautiful love she shared with Glenn was our beacon of hope in the show's dark world. But after Glenn was brutally killed, Maggie wore her pain like armor and lived for the day she could take revenge. As the leader of Hilltop, the difficult decisions she made and her tension-filled confrontations with Negan proved just how strong and determined she truly was. Glenn Rhee. The joy, hope, and quick-thinking mind of the group. Glenn Rhee. When he saved Rick from that tank in Atlanta, he didn't just change Rick's life, he changed all of ours. His willingness to jump into the most dangerous missions without hesitation and his ability to hold on to his pure optimism even in the middle of the apocalypse made him truly special. His love with Maggie was the greatest proof that beautiful things could still exist in this hell. His death became one of the biggest shocks and deepest wounds in the show's history. The void he left behind was never truly filled. Alpha. As the leader of the Whisperers, she rejected everything that resembled civilization and led a philosophy that dragged humanity back to its most primal instincts. The horrifying mask on her face wasn't just camouflage, it was a symbol of having completely stripped away her humanity. Alpha's brutality and unpredictability created a kind of psychological terror that our heroes had never experienced before. The fear she unleashed and the shocking impact she had on the story make her an unforgettable villain. John Dorie. John Dorie was like a ray of sunlight shining into the dark world of Fear the Walking Dead, one of the purest and kindest souls the universe ever saw. A sweet-hearted man, an incredible gunslinger, and above all, an endlessly hopeful optimist. His fairy tale-like love for June and his unshakable trust in people lit a spark even in the most hopeless moments. John was a cowboy who never strayed from his moral compass, honest, honorable, and true. His very presence inspired those around him to become better people. Clementine. At this spot on the list, we have a survival legend who grew up right before our eyes, Clementine. The heart of the Telltale game series. Clem began her journey as an innocent little girl under Lee's protection, and over the years transformed into an experienced, tough, and wise leader. As players, we protected her, guided her, and ultimately watched her reach a point where she no longer needed our protection. Instead, she became strong enough to protect others. Clementine's story is a touching epic of hope, resilience, and how a new generation can survive even in the darkest world. She is the soul of the Walking Dead game universe, and her being this close to the top is no coincidence. Jesus, Paul Rovia. With his mastery of martial arts, sharp mind, and calm demeanor, he instantly became a fan favorite. But he was more than just a fighter. He was a moral center and a wise advisor for Hilltop. Jesus was the type of leader who always saw the bigger picture, built bridges between communities, and preferred diplomacy over war. His presence reminded us that civilization isn't just about building walls, it's about building connections between people. His shocking death was the first and most painful warning of how terrifying the Whisperer threat truly was. Nick Clark. The rebellious, tragic, and uniquely spirited soul of Fear the Walking Dead. Nick Clark was one of the strangest characters in this world. Waking up to the apocalypse as an addict, Nick saw the end of the world almost as a rebirth. His ability to smear walker blood on himself and walk among them without fear gave him a completely different perspective on this new reality. His philosophy was to dance on that thin line between fear and living. Nick had freed himself from all the chains of civilization and formed a different kind of bond with nature and death. His unexpected departure was a devastating blow for the show's fans. Victor Strand. Whether you love him or hate him, you have to respect his intelligence and mastery of survival. He was Fear the Walking Dead's slipperiest, most selfish, yet also most sharp-minded character. From the very first days of the apocalypse, this master manipulator was always planning several moves ahead, treating survival like an art form. Although he initially cared only about his own interests, as the story progressed, we saw that there was a small trace of conscience beneath that shiny armor. Strand is the embodiment of the gray area between good and evil. Very few people play by the new rules of this world better than he does.
Javier Garcia. In Telltale's A New Frontier season, Javier Garcia was the very definition of a leader who put family above everything else. A former baseball player, Javi was forced to fight to keep his fractured family together when the apocalypse hit. His story showed us how important both blood ties and the chosen family you build along the way truly are. His dynamic with Clementine especially allowed us to witness the rise of a new leader through the eyes of an experienced survivor. Javi's determination and the sense of humor he never lost even in the hardest moments made him one of the most beloved heroes of the game series. Carol Pelletier. If this were a list of the most unbelievable character development, she would take first place without question. Think back to that abused, timid, and quiet housewife from Season 1. Now compare her to the strategist who single-handedly destroyed Terminus, outsmarted the leader of the Whisperers with a genius plan, and never hesitated to make the harshest decisions when necessary. Carol paid one of the highest prices for survival, and we witnessed her soul shatter again and again throughout the journey. The infamous "look at the flowers" scene is chilling proof of just how far she was willing to go. Carol isn't a victim. She is the definition of survival. The Governor. The first true big bad to stand against Rick. The Governor hid a psychopath behind the mask of a charismatic leader. While acting like the protective father of the town of Woodbury, he was secretly building an empire of unimaginable cruelty behind closed doors. What made the Governor so terrifying was that part of his motivation was actually deeply human. Devastated by the loss of his family and consumed by a fear of losing control, he turned into a monster capable of anything. His war with Rick's group was the show's first major turning point and the moment that truly revealed how brutal this world could be. Daniel Salazar. Fear, The Walking Dead's former secret agent, wasn't shocked when the walkers appeared. In fact, he simply returned to the brutality he already knew. Daniel understood the darkest rules of survival long before anyone else. His ruthless pragmatism in protecting his family made him both one of the most feared and most trusted members of the group. Even as he struggled with his sanity over time, he always came back from the darkness wiser and more determined. Daniel Salazar is the embodiment of the savagery lying beneath the thin skin of civilization, and a living reminder that in this new world, survival often means confronting the sins of your past. Kenny, the man who split Telltale players into two sides, yet whom his fans loved to death. After losing his family in a horrific way, Kenny became the ultimate example of how grief and rage can turn a person into both a monster and an unbreakable protector. His loyalty to Lee and Clementine sometimes reached dangerous levels, but one thing was certain: he would throw himself into the fire without hesitation for the people he loved. Kenny's impulsive decisions often put us in difficult situations, but at the core of everything was his desperate attempt to hold on to the last few people he considered family. The moral dilemmas he forced players to face and his unforgettable ending make him one of the most legendary characters in gaming history. Shane Walsh. Once Rick's best friend and partner, the collapse of the world brought out the primal and ruthless man hiding inside him. Shane understood the new rules of this world before anyone else, even before Rick. In order to survive, anything was justified. His obsessive attachment to Laurie and Carl and his growing resentment toward Rick ignited the show's first major personal conflict. Shane was essentially a dark preview of the man Rick would one day be forced to become. His story is a tragic tale of how a good man can turn into a monster once the thin veil of civilization is torn away. Lee Everett, the player's moral compass, Clementine's guardian angel, Telltale's unforgettable hero, Lee Everett. Just before the apocalypse, his life fell apart after being accused of murder. But when he found little Clementine, he discovered a new purpose: to protect her at all costs. Lee's story is one of redemption and fatherhood. Every choice we made as players shaped who Lee became and, more importantly, what kind of person Clem would grow into in this cruel world. Lee's heartbreaking sacrifice and the final lessons he gave Clementine created one of the most emotional moments in gaming history. He taught us that protecting a child is, in fact, protecting humanity itself. Rick Grimes. This universe began with him. It breathed through his story. When he woke up from his coma, he was just an ordinary man who suddenly found himself in the middle of hell. The journey he started to find his family transformed him into an icon who would lead what was left of humanity. Rick fell countless times, lost the people he loved, walked the edge of sanity, and questioned his humanity over and over again. But every time he stood back up, for his people, for his family. He made the hardest choices a leader could ever face and carried the heaviest burdens on his own shoulders. Rick Grimes isn't just a character. He is the definition of survival, leadership, and sacrifice. He is, without question, the most essential and foundational pillar of this universe. Negan. Here we arrive at the universe's most charismatic, most infuriating, most devilishly charming villain. A mega-villain who ramped up the tension with that iconic whistle, unleashed terror with his baseball bat Lucille, and strutted onto the screen with those obnoxiously sarcastic one-liners. The scene where he killed Glenn and Abraham is a shared trauma none of us will ever forget. But what sets Negan apart from other villains is that his story didn't end there. The long redemption arc that began after his imprisonment revealed entirely new layers to him. His bond with Judith and Lydia, in particular, showed that he wasn't just a monster, that beneath that hard shell, there was still a flicker of humanity left. Negan is the character you can't help but hate, yet slowly find yourself starting to understand. He's one of the most dynamic, multifaceted figures in The Walking Dead. Daryl Dixon. And here we are, at the very top. A character who never existed in the comics, created solely for the show, yet somehow became a phenomenon even bigger than the series itself. Daryl Dixon. At first, he was an outsider, angry, rough around the edges, and living in the shadow of his brother Merle. But the apocalypse became a rebirth for him. He shed the roles society had forced on him and revealed the loyal, protective person he truly was inside. With his crossbow, his motorcycle, and that quiet charisma, he transformed into an icon. His one-of-a-kind bond with Carol, his unshakable brotherhood with Rick, and the way he looks after Judith and RJ like a true uncle all showed us, time and time again, the golden heart beneath that tough exterior. Daryl doesn't talk much. He acts, and what he does speaks louder than 1,000 words. While others tried to rebuild civilization, Daryl became its heart. He is the living symbol of chosen family, of loyalty that holds strong even in the darkest times. And that's why the greatest character in the Walking Dead universe, the rightful king of the throne, is Daryl Dixon. We've reached the end of our massive list of 25 characters, crafted by diving deep into every corner of the Walking Dead universe. Of course, this list reflects our analysis and our perspective. We're sure you have your own favorites. Characters you'd say, how is this not on the list? No rankings you might completely disagree with. Now it's your turn. What would your list look like? We can't wait to read your answers. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.